You may have seen those shirts with a coloured body and a contrasting white collar and cuff. In this video, we're going to be discussing, are they stylish and should you wear them? So the classic shirt with a contrasting white collar and cuff, often referred to as a Winchester style shirt, is very 20th century, and I think it's very much a British style thing. It's certainly perceived as a British thing. I see it as very much a business look, where people used to wear business suits and ties to work. You'd often see the white collar and cuff. Very old school German street, and I always used to associate it when I first got into interesting classic fashion in the 80s as being quite old school. It was a style you sort of associated with politicians, very, very classic sort of City of London style dressing. Of course, city style dressing became quite fashionable in the 80s with films like Wall Street and whole stockbroker fashion. And the white collar and cuff was indeed worn by Michael Douglas' character Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. And I think it kind of gave a bit of a craze towards that style. I think some of the fashions from Wall Street which had a big popular influence were the white collar and cuff, the slick back hair, and of course most famously the braces. But the shirt itself had a bit of a power look of the 80s. They weren't always seen favourably, and some more traditional outfitters wouldn't do them, and they almost saw them as a bit spivvy, and I was surprised at that because I thought they were very classic, like a chalk stripe suit or a pair of black brogues. And one of the comments I heard was that it was an artificial style shirt. It was copying the elegance of the traditional collarless shirt with a white starch collar, which is, I think, still a fan of it for the appropriate time. So the idea of having a collar attached to white collar was really like a lazy version of a proper heavily starched collar. Often on sort of TV dramas and films, the person wearing a white collar and cuff would be a little bit of a con man. TV shows like Only Fools and Horses and Minder, which sort of celebrate that slightly spivvy character, the main characters were wearing shirts with white collars and cuffs, and I think that gave it a little bit of a flash look that some of my more conservative customers would not touch. As soon as I got into made-to-measure shirts, in the late 90s, I started to wear them. And I actually think they actually had a purpose as well. I think they had quite a practical purpose. I think it was a really good way of actually introducing pattern into your shirts, because I loved quite bold pattern shirts, bold stripes, bold checks, but sometimes next to the skin is a lot of pattern going on with the tie, the pocket square, the pattern suit. And putting a white collar and cuff on just toned down the shirt. It just made the shirt body a little bit more of a background and not the main part of the look. So I kind of like that. They became very fashionable again, late 90s, early 2000s. And I even saw them being worn casually, and it was quite an interesting look. I think if you could carry it off, particularly with like a very sort of nice smart blazer, an open-necked white-collared shirt, had a kind of a dapper, sporty look to it, which I quite enjoyed. Quick interruption, but opportunity to win a great prize: an online one-on-one style consultation with me. Ask me all your sartorial questions. I'll give you some bespoke advice. And to get this, all you need to do is be a subscriber to Rampley & Co. If you're not already, details below. Now, of course, the world has changed and we no longer want to dress like we're in business socially. We live in a far more casual world, and you rarely see them outside of custom shirt making. So I would say they're not fashionable. I know very few brands that probably carry them ready to wear, but they still have their place. And to me, they are for formal dress. So if you want to have a very formal look, either with a three-piece suit or perhaps with morning dress, and you don't want the discomfort of a starched collar, a white collar and cuff is a fun thing to have if it's your style. So why do we call them Winchesters? Well, I've actually got a personal view on this, and I think I'm quite involved in it. In the 90s, I used to work for a shirt maker from Jermyn Street called Thomas Pink, and they were one of the brands that were kind of against them. Whenever we talked about it in sales meetings and staff meetings about what we should be doing, customer feedback, I was always saying, why don't we do the white collar and cuff? It's such an English style shirt. And there was that sort of sniffiness about it. No one actually came out and said it's not us, but the suggestion was often ignored. I was running the concession in Selfridges, and a lot of my American customers were sort of asking for, they're in London, they wanted a British shirt, they wanted the blue Bengal, white collar and cuff as a London shirt souvenir. So I convinced Thomas Pink that they should do a special run just for Selfridges with a blue Bengal and a white collar and cuff. And it took ages to convince them, and I had to make it wholesale. I had to do some real weeding and dealing, and it got a bit spivvy. And I managed to do this shirt. So just before it was being delivered, I remember speaking to the production guy and said, we need to give it a name because we don't have a white collar option. We need to give it its own unique name. And our shirts at the time were named after English towns or English cities, racecourses, typical sort of marketing. So I thought we should put a name which has a link to it. So we went through some different names. We're going to name it after characters in Minder, after Daily, but Daily was too obvious. We looked at the Trotter shirt, but again, that was too obvious for only horses and horses. So me and my assistant manager kind of brainstormed, and we thought the Winchester. The Winchester was the private members club in Minder, but it sounded like a Thomas Pink name. So we called it the Winchester. It sounded very Thomas Pink shirt name, but me and my friends knew it was a bit of an in joke, and we thought nothing of it. Until in about 99, 2000, I noticed lots of other shirt makers doing Winchester shirts and with white collars and cuffs. And I thought, that's funny, but I know how these names capture people's imaginations. The Winchester name was adopted by Thomas Pink for the whole white collar and cuff collection, whether it was a blue Bengal or not, and other companies copied in Jermyn Street and further afield in the High Street. And I thought that was quite funny, didn't think anything of it. And then I started looking on the internet and seeing these really strange stories, how it had like a story about how it was invented back in the 30s, and that's how the Winchester shirt was come from. And I thought, and Oliver Winchester, who had a shirt factory as well as the gun factory, had a white collar and cuff. That's why we call them Winchesters. So I've done some research, and I've never seen any evidence of the word Winchester being used before 1994 to refer to a shirt with a white collar and cuff. So I'd be really interested if any of you got any evidence to put it in the comments below, because I'd love to find out. Perhaps it was a coincidence, maybe it was a Winchester shirt and I picked up the same name just by chance, but I think it's a fake history and the Winchester is a Thomas Pink trade name. So although they're not that popular these days, they are available online, usually with a version of a blue body of a white collar and cuff aimed at the more formal market. If you really like them though, I would suggest going custom because you get a much wider range of shirts, patterns to go with it. I would always suggest going for quite decent sized collars. I like sort of deep cutaways, semi-cutaways, and always a double cuff. So are you Team Winchester? Do you still wear this style or do you think it's a bit out of fashion? Love to hear in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.